The temples at Angkor Wat in Cambodia make up the largest Hindu temple complex in the world.
Economic foundation of Angkor and propel the empire into greatness.
They thought Angkor Wat had already revealed all its secrets until a LiDAR drone exposed something so unexpected that archaeologists are rewriting history. Angkor Wat is one of the world's most studied archaeological sites, but LiDAR technology is exposing what the human eye simply cannot see. Beneath the dense Cambodian jungle, entire networks, structures, and forgotten engineering systems are emerging, reshaping everything we thought we knew about the Khmer Empire. Let's break down exactly what the drones found and why it's shaking the archaeological world. The magnificent Angkor Wat. Let me take you back to the 12th century, when the Khmer Empire was building something extraordinary. Angkor Wat stands today as one of the most breathtaking religious monuments ever constructed by human hands. The main temple stretches 215 meters by 186 meters and rises more than 60 meters into the Cambodian sky. The entire complex, surrounded by a massive moat, covers an area of 1,500 meters by 1,200 meters. For centuries, travelers from around the globe have stood in awe before these magnificent stone towers, adorned with intricate carvings depicting Hindu gods and epic stories. The temple was built during the reign of King Suryavarman II between 1113 and 1150 AD, originally dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. Later, it transformed into a Buddhist temple and remains an important spiritual site to this day. But here's what most visitors never realize as they walk through these ancient corridors. The temple they're admiring represents just a tiny fraction of what once existed here. The dense jungle surrounding Angkor Wat has been hiding secrets that even the most experienced archaeologists couldn't fully comprehend. For decades, researchers walked over hidden treasures, unable to see what lay beneath their feet. The Khmer Empire, which ruled Southeast Asia from the 9th to 15th centuries, controlled vast territories encompassing modern-day Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. At its peak, the capital city housed nearly 1 million inhabitants, making it the largest pre-industrial city on Earth. The question that haunted archaeologists for generations was simple, yet profound. Where did all these people actually live? The technology that sees through time. Traditional archaeology had reached its limits in the Cambodian jungle.
Cambodia's Angkor Wat is not just one of the largest religious monuments in Southeast Asia.
Ground surveys were painstakingly slow, covering maybe a few square kilometers after months of hard work. The thick canopy overhead blocked satellite imagery, and the difficult terrain made mapping nearly impossible. Dense vegetation concealed everything beneath it, and dangerous remnants of war, including landmines left from the Khmer Rouge era, made many areas too hazardous to explore on foot. Then came LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging. This revolutionary technology works like radar, but instead of radio waves, it uses laser pulses. A helicopter or plane equipped with LiDAR shoots millions of laser beams toward the ground every second. These beams bounce back, and sophisticated computers measure exactly how long each pulse takes to return. Here's where it gets fascinating. Some laser pulses hit leaves and branches, bouncing back quickly. Others penetrate gaps in the canopy, traveling all the way to the ground before returning. By analyzing millions of these measurements, computers can essentially erase the vegetation digitally, revealing the bare earth and any structures on it. The system can detect changes in elevation as small as a few centimeters, creating incredibly detailed three-dimensional maps of the landscape. In April 2012, archaeologist Damien Evans from the University of Sydney led a groundbreaking mission. They mounted LiDAR equipment onto helicopter skids and flew over 370 square kilometers of Cambodian jungle in just 20 hours of flight time. The areas surveyed included Angkor and two nearby temple complexes called Phnom Kulen and Ko Ker. This single expedition would collect more data than decades of traditional ground surveys combined. The moment everything changed. When Damien Evans first loaded the LiDAR data onto his computer screen, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. In his own words, he described it as an embarrassingly exciting time for archaeologists. Structures that had remained invisible for centuries suddenly appeared with crystal clarity. Roads, canals, temples, and entire city layouts materialized on the screen like magic. The data revealed that Angkor extended far beyond its famous moat. Instead of the 9 square kilometers previously documented through ground surveys, the nicely planned grid system actually stretched across 35 square kilometers. The discovery shattered conventional understanding of how medieval cities were organized. Angkor wasn't a compact walled fortress like many assumed. It sprawled across the landscape like a medieval version of Los Angeles, with dense population centers connected by massive highways and canal systems. But the biggest shock came when they looked at the area just south of Angkor Wat's moat. The LiDAR revealed 6 massive, mysterious structures, unlike anything ever seen in Khmer architecture. These formations consisted of long earthen embankments arranged in precise spiral patterns, each roughly 1 kilometer long and half a kilometer wide. To put that in perspective, each spiral covered an area about 10 times the length and width of a football field. Roland Fletcher, another lead archaeologist on the project, described his reaction. It was an unbelievable surprise. Nothing like them had been seen before in Khmer architecture. These weren't just random mounds. They were carefully engineered structures with 18-meter-wide sandbanks separated by 12-meter-wide channels. Their precise alignment with Angkor Wat's moat proved they were built at the same time as the temple itself. The mystery of the spiral structures. So what exactly were these bizarre spiral formations? That's the million-dollar question that still puzzles archaeologists today. Let's look at what researchers have ruled out and what possibilities remain on the table. First, they determined these structures weren't part of the water management system. Despite having channels between the embankments, they weren't connected to the broader network of canals and reservoirs that fed the city. Computer modeling showed that water definitely did not flow through these spirals in any meaningful way. Field surveys found virtually no ceramic fragments or other signs of human habitation, suggesting people didn't actually live on these structures. Some researchers speculate they might have been ceremonial gardens. The channels between the raised embankments could have carried rainwater to plants growing on the mounds. Perhaps they cultivated aromatic herbs and sacred plants used in temple rituals, like sandalwood trees on the elevated sections and lotus flowers in the water channels. If this theory is correct, these would have been the largest ornamental gardens in the world until European palace gardens were built in the 18th and 19th centuries. Others wonder if they had spiritual significance beyond practical use. The spiral shape appears in many religious traditions, symbolizing journeys, cycles, and the path to enlightenment. However, Roland Fletcher points out that nothing resembling these coiled forms appears in Hindu writings and art. The statues and reliefs at Angkor Wat depict Hindu gods and tell stories from Hindu scriptures, but spirals like these are conspicuously absent. The structures may never have been completed. After decades of construction, possibly coinciding with work on the main temple, evidence suggests the spirals might have been abandoned before becoming operational. Researchers are now examining fossilized pollen recovered from the coils, hoping it will reveal whether plants were cultivated there or if the structures served some other mysterious purpose. The lost capital emerges from the forest. While the discoveries at Angkor Wat were astounding, the LiDAR survey revealed something even more remarkable in the Phnom Kulen Mountains, about 40 kilometers north of Angkor Wat.
The crowds are literally draining the life out from under Angkor Wat and its temples.
Ancient inscriptions had long mentioned a city called Mahendra Parvata, meaning Mountain of the Great Indra. Historians knew this was where King Jayavarman II proclaimed himself the first king of the Khmer Empire in 802 AD. But the actual city remained lost to history. The LiDAR images brought this forgotten capital back to life. What researchers discovered was a meticulously planned urban center spanning between 40 and 50 square kilometers, making it double the size of any previously known Angkorian complex. The city featured an elaborate grid of major thoroughfares, dividing the central zone into organized blocks with subdivided parcels. This level of urban planning was revolutionary for its time, and challenges previous assumptions about early medieval city development. Jean-Baptiste Chavance, who led the ground expedition to verify the LiDAR findings, described the challenging conditions. The team traversed goat tracks and watery bogs, reaching their starting points by motorbike while constantly watching for landmines. But what they found made every danger worthwhile. Using the LiDAR data, they identified 30 previously unknown temples hidden beneath the jungle canopy. The survey also revealed an extensive water management system featuring dams, diversions, canals, and a major unfinished reservoir. What makes Mahendraparvata particularly fascinating is its unusual design. Unlike later Khmer cities, including Angkor itself, Mahendraparvata had no walls or moats defining its central area. This architectural choice is totally unique in the Khmer world. The city represents a different philosophy of urban development, one that hadn't been constrained by defensive fortifications or rigid boundaries. The civilization built on water. The LiDAR data revealed something crucial about Khmer civilization. Their relationship with water was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined.
Stone ruins of Angkor sit atop a huge reservoir of underground water. For centuries, this water has...
The network of canals, reservoirs, and water management infrastructure extended across the entire Greater Angkor region, creating what researchers now call a hydraulic city. The scale of this system is mind-boggling. The West Baray, one of the massive reservoirs located about 2 kilometers west of Angkor Wat, measures 8 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. To put that in perspective, you could fit more than 4,000 Olympic swimming pools inside this single reservoir. Another embankment system that directed water across the landscape stretched at least 40 kilometers in length. This elaborate network wasn't just impressive engineering, it was essential for survival. The Khmer people needed stable water supplies to support rice agriculture year-round. The canals captured water flowing from the mountains during monsoon season, storing it in huge reservoirs called barays. This stored water then fed an intricate system of channels that irrigated farmland throughout the dry season. With this technology, farmers could harvest rice 3 times per year, generating the massive food surplus needed to support a population of nearly 1 million people. The LiDAR survey showed that this water management infrastructure existed at a comparable scale at Phnom Kulen and Kokur as well. Every major Khmer settlement relied on similar hydraulic engineering to control floods and ensure food security. Researchers now believe this widespread reliance on complex water systems ultimately contributed to the empire's downfall, but we'll get to that shocking revelation later. The hidden neighborhoods. One of the most surprising discoveries completely changed how we understand who actually lived at Angkor Wat.
The centerpiece is the sprawling Angkor Wat, which has become Cambodia's main tourist destination.
For decades, scholars assumed the area within the temple's moat was exclusively reserved for religious and political elites, priests, nobles, and royal families. The common people supposedly lived outside these sacred boundaries. The LiDAR data told a completely different story. Within Angkor Wat's massive enclosure, the technology revealed a formal grid of roads, mounds, and hundreds of small ponds, each typically 20 to 30 meters across. Ground excavations confirmed these ponds were used for drinking water and daily washing. The mounds marked locations where wooden houses once stood, long since rotted away. Who lived in these structures? Further archaeological work provided the answer: workers. The people residing within Angkor Wat's sacred precincts weren't wealthy nobles at all. They were the laborers, craftspeople, and service workers who kept the massive temple complex functioning. This discovery fundamentally challenged traditional understanding of Angkor Wat's social hierarchy. This pattern of low-density residential occupation surrounding temples appeared throughout the surveyed area. The LiDAR revealed that rather than being isolated monuments, the temples were nodes in an increasingly concentrated medieval cityscape. Roads and canals connected these temple communities, creating an urban network that stretched far beyond what anyone had previously mapped. The eastern enclosure of Angkor Wat also contained more structured archaeological features, though their exact purpose remains unclear. What's certain is that the scale of human activity at Angkor Wat was dramatically larger and more complex than centuries of ground surveys had suggested. Defensive secrets and buried towers, ground-penetrating radar and targeted excavations revealed another layer of Angkor Wat's hidden history.
But researchers have always believed there had to be more than just temples out there, buried beneath the jungle.
Archaeologists discovered evidence of 8 buried towers within the temple complex. These structures were built and then deliberately demolished during the construction and initial use of the main temple. Researchers believe they might have been temporary shrines used during the lengthy construction period. But perhaps the most shocking discovery concerned Angkor Wat's final years. The temple's enclosure wall showed clear signs of systematic modification for defensive purposes. Wooden structures had been added late in the site's history, transforming the religious monument into a fortification. This came as a complete surprise, because no historical records ever mentioned Angkor Wat being used for defense. The defensive modifications likely occurred between 1297 and 1585 AD, or possibly between 1585 and the 1630s. During this period, the neighboring Siamese kingdom of Ayutthaya was growing increasingly powerful and threatening Khmer territories. The fortifications at Angkor Wat represent the first and only known example of an Angkorian temple being systematically adapted for military defense. These defensive structures may represent one of the last major construction projects at Angkor, perhaps indicating the empire's desperate final attempt to protect its heartland. The fact that a sacred temple needed to be transformed into a fortress speaks volumes about how threatened the Khmer Empire had become. Cities bigger than modern capitals. The LiDAR surveys didn't stop at Angkor Wat and Mahendra Parvata. In 2015, archaeologists conducted follow-up surveys covering more than 735 square miles of jungle. These expanded scans revealed multiple previously undocumented medieval cities scattered across the Cambodian landscape.
Lasers mounted on the helicopter can cut through the jungle to detect topographical details hidden beneath.
All dating between 900 and 1400 years old. One particularly significant discovery occurred near the Temple of Preah Khan of Kompong Svai, located about 60 miles east of Angkor. Damien Evans and his team had spent a full decade conducting ground surveys in this area, searching for evidence of a city they suspected must exist around the temple. Despite years of effort, they found virtually nothing. Then the LiDAR data arrived. Evans described the moment. All of a sudden, the city has more or less instantly appeared on the screen in front of us. It had been hiding in plain sight. A city that we figured wasn't there just appeared. The settlement featured a 3-mile by 3-mile enclosed urban grid, making it the largest in Southeast Asia. The combined LiDAR data from all surveys revealed that, by the 13th century, the low-density cityscape of Greater Angkor covered approximately 1,000 square kilometers. To give you context, that's roughly the size of modern-day Los Angeles. Evidence for Angkorian construction and engineering appeared essentially everywhere the LiDAR looked, even in areas that had been intensively studied for decades. These discoveries fundamentally changed how archaeologists think about pre-industrial cities. For generations, scholars assumed ancient cities were dense agglomerations of people living close together. The LiDAR data from Angkor and similar studies of Maya cities in Central America showed that many early cities were actually highly dispersed, with dense central areas surrounded by extensive low-density suburbs, just like modern metropolitan areas. The engineering marvel. The LiDAR surveys revealed that the Khmer people carried out large-scale landscape modification that extended far beyond building temples or settlements. They cleared wide areas of forest, rerouted water, and constructed early systems of environmental control. The scans showed that archaeological features existed across almost every part of the surveyed region, including places previously examined for many years. Even minimal vegetation had concealed structural traces, confirming that the entire Angkor landscape had been far more developed than earlier researchers believed. The imagery showed how extensively the Khmer engineered their environment. It exposed ponds, canals, reservoirs, roads, temple plots, and agricultural fields that once supported a dense and organized population. researchers emphasized that human activity shaped nearly every piece of land in the region. At Mahendra Parvata, the early engineering was particularly notable. The LiDAR data revealed large dams, dikes, and drainage features that required significant planning and manpower. These projects supported the growth of the early Khmer state by improving stability, resource control, and long-term settlement. The environmental warning signs and superpower collapse. The same scans that uncovered this complex infrastructure also revealed signs of decline. Severe erosion appeared in multiple areas of the ancient city. Excavations showed deep layers of sand and gravel that pointed to rapid flooding events. In one example, a canal linked to the Siem Reap River filled quickly with more than a meter of coarse sediment, likely from a major flood. Climate records from Vietnam added context by showing that the region experienced long droughts, followed by intense monsoon events during the 14th and 15th centuries. These shifts disrupted the water management system, overwhelmed canal capacity, and damaged critical structures such as bridges and reservoirs. Evidence of deforestation and reduced maintenance further contributed to the weakening of the system. Forest clearing for farmland increased soil erosion, and heavy rains carried large amounts of sediment into canals and reservoirs. As agricultural productivity declined and the population dropped, fewer workers were available to sustain the infrastructure. By the early 14th century, residents had begun leaving parts of Angkor, which accelerated the system's deterioration. By the time the Ayutthaya kingdom captured the region in 1431, the Khmer Empire had already diminished significantly. Some communities remained, and Angkor Wat continued as a religious site, but the broader urban landscape was eventually overtaken by vegetation, and the scale of the civilization faded from memory. An empire that spanned centuries, a capital larger than any modern city until the Industrial Revolution, and engineering marvels that shouldn't have been possible with medieval technology. But they also revealed the warning signs of collapse, erosion, failed infrastructure, and the environmental stress that brought down one of history's greatest civilizations. The mystery continues to fascinate researchers who keep returning to study these enigmatic formations. What do you think those mysterious spiral structures were really used for? Drop your theories in the comments below.